Welcome back to What She Said. I'm Kate Wheeler. The family of a 55-year-old mother of two who died after suffering burns to most of her body has launched a $12 million negligence lawsuit against the manufacturer of an ethanol-fueled lamp. In studio with us now is Toronto critical injury lawyer John McLeish from McLeish Orlando and Dr. James McGorman. Thank you both for joining us today. The tragedy occurred at a Burnt River cottage where your wife, Dr. Judith Buys, was visiting neighbors during a power outage. Tell us what happened.
Well, we're having a great day. Everything was wonderful. My son had been up for dinner, and there was a power outage. Our friends came down and invited us to come over. I was sitting in a separate room, and Judith was visiting with her friends on the porch. And when I walked up, there was a small light on the porch table I'd never seen before, didn't know anything about it, didn't clue in that it was ever a risk or a problem. It looked quite lovely. And while I was playing cards, all of a sudden there was a huge explosion in the gazebo area or the screened-in porch. And because there was a power outage, there was very little light for us to tell what was going on. But as we came to understand what happened, we all ran with buckets of water and tried to put out the flames. And very quickly I had someone come to me and say that my wife had been badly injured. And I quickly went to her side and found a place for her to lie down. And she had been injured. A number of others in the room had been injured. And all she could keep saying to me was that, Jim, I'm still burning. I feel like everything's burning. And so we laid her down and tried to make her as comfortable as we can as we made arrangements to get her to the hospital.
Now, this is because the lamp was ethanol, and ethanol burns invisibly, pretty much. And there was no flame arrestor on the lamp. So as I understand it, they thought that the flame was dead, that the lamp needed refueling.
Yeah, so what happens with these little stoves or lamps is basically they're a cup that you put ethanol in, and that ethanol burns in that cup openly and makes a beautiful flame. It's said to be safe because it doesn't produce carbon monoxide, so you can have it inside, and that is the way it is marketed. However, these little stoves, the fuel is so clear and perfect that it burns with almost no flame. So in this case, the people in that room felt it was out. They waited the prescribed 15 minutes that you're supposed to wait for it to cool down and went to refuel it after much discussion, actually. And as you refuel it, it's actually the container that has a fuel in it that needs the flame arrestor. And as you refuel it, there's a chance that fuel can ignite because ethanol is a volatile substance and it creates a gas which is flammable. So if that gas catches fire from a source of flame, that flame is brought into the container, and the container, the liquid in the container catches flame and actually expands to 400 times its size. So there's no way it stays in the container, and it basically shoots out like a flamethrower and catches everything in its path. And unfortunately, my wife was in its path.
Now, John, your hope is that this lawsuit will draw attention to the serious and recognized hazard of ethanol-fueled lamps, right?
Yes, that's absolutely correct. This is not the first time this has happened, and it's being manufactured and distributed by other companies in addition to the one that involved here, and has been sold and continues to be sold throughout North America and Europe, and it's a very seriously dangerous product, as can be seen from what happened in this particular instance.
Do you find it surprising that, we have labels on food that this might cause this or that, and meanwhile something like this is not more regulated?
If you're asking me that question, absolutely. This, as Jim has indicated, this looked like a very innocuous product, and it was really represented an illusion of safety. It was potentially very, very dangerous product, as can be seen from the consequences. And looking at it, who would know?
Who would know? Well, the manufacturer is Brasa Fire Inc. It's made in Germany? Is that in Germany?
It is manufactured in Germany and distributed from there throughout North America and elsewhere.
Now, the statement of claim filed with the Ontario Superior Court alleges that Brasa companies designed, manufactured, packaged, and sold an unsafe ethanol-fueled lamp and open refueling container, which they failed to adequately test before distribution. So, Doctor, you believe this was entirely preventable?
Absolutely. These are defective products. If you look at them and if you look at the history of them, it's well known in the industry that flame arresters will stop this in almost 100% of occurrences. And for some reason, they have chosen not to install them. There are companies that are reputable that do install flame arresters on their containers of fuel, but there are many others that do not. And we know that simple plastic flame arrestor that costs only a few pennies would have saved my wife's life. And yet these companies, for some reason, refuse to install them on their fuel containers.
John, are there other incidents of this happening?
There are a number of them, going back decades, not necessarily with this company, but other companies with similar products, and it's not a rare occurrence. And the manufacturers and distributors know that it has happened and will continue to happen. As Jim said, one way of preventing it is with a flame arrestor that's can be done at minimal cost.
I was just going to ask you, is it, prohibitively expensive to install one?
No, it costs only pennies. And to your question about how often this occurs, statistics from the States in a much larger country claim that there are almost 4,000 people a year injured and almost 450 die a year from similar incidences, not just with ethanol, but with volatile fuels in general, all of which probably could be prevented with flame arresters.
Tell us a little bit about Judith.
Well, the woman was a force. I was married to her for 31 years. I knew her since the age of 19, and she was a wonderful person. And, her loss was a loss to my family. It was a loss to my children and myself in a great way. But it was also a loss to our community. I mean, she had an office full of 17 women that worked for her. They had a wonderful office, and the girls are still hurting terribly from her loss. And our community lost a great deal because Judith worked with children. She worked with mentally handicapped adults. She took people into the hospital where very few dentists do that sort of thing and looked after all difficult cases there. She had a way with kids, and it's the kind of thing that you'd learn on your own that's not really taught. And Judith was a real force in the community in terms of support for important groups. We have always supported the YWCA. We are still involved in a very interesting project with them now in Judith's name. And so we feel that she was a loss not just to ourselves, but to the whole community.
And you want to try and make sure that loss doesn't happen to another family, another community.
Absolutely. And, unfortunately, I'm going at this from every angle that I can to try to get these companies to come to heel and do the right thing. And unfortunately, it's never easy. And the corporate world often only listens to their pocketbook. And if you don't kick them there, they don't seem to change. So I think in some ways this is an opportunity to affect change.
And John, what's the timeline for a case like this?
Mm-hmm.
It can take several years. And we'll just see what kind of cooperation we get from the various lawyers who are representing the defendants. And just to add to the point Jim made a few minutes ago, he has made it very clear to me, and this is not about the money. This is not about the money. This is to make this product either safer or get it off the market altogether. That's what he has emphasized to me almost every time I meet him.
And to that point, Kate, I mean, we are trying to do everything in our family that we can to change this. I'm in discussions with Health Canada. I've been working with the fire marshal. I'm involved with ASTM, which is the group in the States that regulates these things. So we're trying to get change in as many ways as possible.
And have there been any that
Changes?
you know of? Yeah.
Not yet.
Any stores that have, no?
With respect to that, the statement of claim has been filed in the Superior Court, but it has not yet been served on the defendants.
Okay. Well, John McLeish and Dr. James McGorman, thank you both for joining us today and sharing your story. And we wish you both all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you.